Addiction is a huge problem, and a lot of us are wondering how to stop being addicted to drugs, either for ourselves or for someone else. I have an expert with me today that's going to help us drill down on that. Today I've got with me a returning guest here on the channel and Live on Purpose certified coach, Blu Robinson. Who is also the founder and director of Addict to Athlete. He's a specialist on addiction. And Blu, you've got a philosophy.
Yeah.
And that philosophy is erase and replace.
You know, Dr. Paul, I found it to be very important that when you are looking to eliminate any kind of bad habit, specifically an addiction, that if you're going to erase that addiction, you've got to replace it with something of greater value. And that something has to be more than one thing. So we say things of greater value. So it's important to understand what addiction is, first and foremost. How do you know you even have one? Mm-hmm. So an addiction is a repetitive behavior that has negative consequences over a long period of time. You've heard of it in times of having your life become unmanageable. Well, life can be still manageable if, say, you're starting to struggle in school or job performance. But what happens is when we lose the job, we lose the family, we lose the social aspects of our life, then we can kind of look at the situations or the things we're doing and say, man, maybe this substance, maybe this thing I'm doing is an addiction. So if we're going to erase that and take that away, you've got to replace it with things of greater value. And that's the difficult part.
You say things, but we're not talking about materials or possessions. We're talking about
experiences, relationships.
How you use your time, where you invest your precious life energy.
Absolutely. And that is so important in this day and age as well, to be able to invest in the things that are most precious. You know, the one common theme that I get when people are trying to eliminate addiction in their lives is the relationships that they've lost. Meaning family, you know, specifically with husbands and wives, or maybe even with children. The relationships are the first thing to usually go. And so even in relationship, the dynamics of things of greater value means quality time, honesty, being a person of your word, having that integrity reestablished. And so when you're eliminating addiction, it's so important to be able to see the bigger picture. And that's not always easy for someone that's stuck in the middle of it.
It seems like the problem is the drugs.
That's what it looks like.
Right? In this
Absolutely.
case, you're saying we can be addicted to anything. It could be any substance, but also activities or behaviors that are not serving us well, but we continue to engage in those things.
Absolutely. So one ramification would be addict to athlete, right? You can become addicted to working out and health and athletics, believe it or not. I don't know how much people like running out there, but sometimes you can become addicted to those things. And so you must create balance. That balance is a key factor in these things, because if you put all your energy into one resource or one outlet, the chances of that becoming your secondary addiction is very, very high.
So secondary addiction, like you're shifting from this addiction over to that addiction. We haven't solved the problem. We've just shifted it.
So it's basically wrapped in a new package. And it's a little easier to justify because at least I'm not doing this anymore, but you're spending all this time, energy, resource on this.
Right.
So it's kind of one and the same. But getting back to what you said about identifying what the addiction truly is, okay? Being able to identify that it's not the substance, it's not the opiates, or it's not the alcohol. That's the driver or the mechanism. There's something behind that pushing it. And something I've noticed is that it has to do with something that hurts. It's identifying the hurt that creates the feeling, that creates the desire to try and suppress it. So if you look at what's really driving your addiction and you can identify the real issue, it's going to be a lot easier to eliminate that addiction because you're going to the source of the fire, not just trying to fan the flames.
Easier to solve the problem, but there's reasons people don't want to go there.
Absolutely.
It's scary.
And it hurts. Who wants to open up an old wound that's kind of starting to heal? You follow me? And so it's really important to identify that if you get back to that core issue, it's going to hurt. And that hurt is what causes that desire to use and suppress it.
Right. So it's not about the substance, the drugs, the activity. it's about the feelings that are driving you to that behavior and to return to it. It's kind of like medicating yourself for those feelings so that you don't have to feel it.
Absolutely. And there's a funny thing I've noticed. There are patterns in addiction. I've been doing this for so long, I've noticed. So if you get someone that says using opiates, and maybe they started off having legitimate pain, well, that works to cover emotional pain and spiritual pain, and just as well it does physical pain. And so getting back to the real cause of it, although that pain may still be there, if you've had a back injury for years and years and years, but yet life's kind of falling apart and there's more issues than just the back pain, a lot of times once the drug's eliminated, they stop taking that opiate, the back pain's not as severe as they thought. It gets mental and it gets to be worse than what it truly is.
Well, pain is experienced psychologically. And knowing that can help you to approach it in an appropriate way. The substance doesn't fix it. It basically gives you a little buffer between yourself and the pain.
It does. It most certainly does. And that's the cause of all that problem, is that buffer. So when you're going to approach someone that may be struggling with addiction, it's super important to understand that the substances they're using and the behaviors that are following that are not the real problem.
Right. So Blue, help us out as we wrap our heads around this topic. How do we stop being addicted to a drug? Can you break it down into maybe a couple of practical steps that we can take?
First and foremost, it's important to do the research on yourself, meaning get with a professional, someone that can help you uncover and expose that pain. And I'll be honest with you, the perception of that pain might kind of keep you away, but once it's exposed and once it's treated correctly, it won't hurt as bad.
It's not as bad as you think.
Not as bad as you think. The other part of that too is, again, to replace it with things of greater value. Bring people in. There are people in your life, the relationships that you have with friends, family, coworkers even, that have been through it too. A lot of times we think we're special cases. No one understands the pain that I have. We all get banged up in this life, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
So there are people that experience that and can help you through their own experiences. That's why groups work so well. That's why support, community resources work so well. Professionals in the field, that's why we train ourselves to help individuals struggling with this. And the last thing, more importantly, is to be able to replace that with things of greater value, meaning experience new things, be genuine with who you are, be honest with the experiences that you've had, and not candy coat or sugarcoat anything so that there can be nothing left in the tank. It can be completely left out there on the path behind you as you're moving forward. And then you use those experiences to help shape and change others. To be able to serve is probably the most important aspect of identifying, recovering, and long-term sobriety.
Wow. Powerful steps. And there's a lot of psychological reasons why those work. Wow. It's simple. Simple and easy aren't the same thing.
No.
So don't be surprised when it's a little hard to do this. But there's absolutely hope.
There is. And we overcomplicate a lot of this stuff too. Like I said, having a wound that's beginning to heal never feels good when you have to re-expose it and clean it up. But eventually, it will heal.
Wow, some powerful principles there. Blu Robinson is a specialist in addiction, and you can find him at liveonpurpose.coach, where you'll find other coaches that can also help you as you move forward.
I saw her standing in the street.